today I'll be talking about the effect of the word free on different groups of people, and the question I'm trying to answer is whether consumers prefer the free good significantly more, even if it has poor quality. And so this question comes from the field of behavioral economics, the field I'm very interested in and what I'm planning to study in future, as it is a mix of economics and psychology, and it is relatively a new field. And so there is this theory of zero price effect, and I wanted to check whether it is always the case and it will always work with all of the goods. And so I decided to do this research. And also reading more about different biases in behavioral economics, I found this concept of a special price, and it is the zero price. So the zero price effect suggests that items with a price of zero do not follow a linear utility model, but instead it suggests that humans irrationally overrate the value of zero. So it basically means that utility of the free good is perceived as higher than when the good is just reduced, for example, to a lower but cheaper version. And we will see this in the research that comes later. So the argument about zero price also goes into suggesting that traditional cost-benefit models do not account for the psychological effect of getting something for free, and this is where the behavioral economics come into place. So the zero price effect has really two extremes. So the first one, it's for example, if you imagine that you are given a candies, and if the candy is, for example, at price of £1, you might take 2, 3, depends how much you like sweets. But if you offer the candy for free, you wouldn't take more than one candy. And this shows, this goes against the traditional demand model. So when the price increases, demand decreases because less consumers want to purchase this good. But here we see actually the opposite. So when the price is dramatically reduced to zero, the demand actually decreases. And so the other extreme version is when demand gets too much, and this is in the study, zero as a special price, the true value of free products. So this study was conducted, and they did a test to see whether consumers take much more of a product when it is free compared to them buying a product when it is at a very low price. And so they took 60 participants that needed to choose between chocolates, so it is either Hershey's, Ferrero Rocher, or they could choose to buy nothing. And so they had these three conditions, so cost condition, and they had 1 or 26 units of money, then free condition, 0 and 25, and then the additional cost condition, 227. And so what they did is they looked at whether reduction from 227 to 126 had a different effect to the reduction from 126 to 0.25. Because in both of the cases, it is reduced by the constant amount, but only in the second one, it is reduced to a zero. And so what they found was that when it was reduced from 227 to 126, the demand didn't really change, as can be seen from the first two graphs. But when it was reduced from 126 to 0.25, we see the 90% of participants decided to buy the free option, which shows how extreme the example is when both were reduced by the constant amount. There were also a lot of other research done. So the first one talks about freemium business models and how it operates. So for example, on platforms like Spotify or YouTube, people always, and consumers, usually want to get this good because it is free, but also there is a premium version that you have to pay for. So the firms and companies, the idea is that consumers come into their market, they see how good the free option is, and they decide to get a premium one that they have to pay for. But actually, the study talks that this conversion rate from free to the paid one is very low, so it's like 3 to 5%. And this is exactly explained by the zero price, because when it is free, more people want to come into the field and get the good. But actually, when they have to pay for it, the demand is not that big. And then the second research, it talks about sort of similar idea, but it is focused more on the reasons behind such behavior. So it talks about loss aversion, that consumers are scared to lose money and they think it might not be beneficial, and also the idea of fear of missing out. And also it talks about social norms, that it is expected to not get a paid option. And so, yeah, and the last research, it talks about advertisements in online services. So it actually did the study and found that consumers do not mind advertisements in online systems. But for example, if it was in the cinema, then obviously there would be some negative attitude to it. But in the online services, the advertisement is tolerated, and yeah, and it is like that because consumers think that if they have already a free option, then it is their cost benefit is already good. And so my study was to see whether the zero price effect will be different based on different types of goods. So my aims are to analyze whether the presence of the word free affects perception of quality and evaluate whether the word free leads to impulsive and irrational decisions. So this is basically like the basic idea of the zero price effect. Then to make contributions to the field of behavioral economics by showing that perceived gains override logical thinking. So it is again that zero price effect is treated more as it is gains benefits rather than loses costs. Then to show that people are rational to an extent by highlighting that smaller amount of people will choose free option when it comes to choices about health and education, as they understand that the risk associated with health, education and things like that might be higher, and therefore it will not be beneficial to get the free good. And finally, to contribute to the understanding of marketing strategies and how language manipulates human perception of products, as it is now really common that marketing and advertisement strategies use these series and these studies to get consumers to buy something. So my hypotheses are the null hypothesis that will be then rejected, hopefully, is there will be no effect on decision making when introduced to the word free. An alternative hypothesis, so the one I'm trying to prove, is that when introduced to the word free, more participants will choose this good even if the quality will be lower. And then the research hypothesis, like sort of the wider one, is that less people will choose free option when the choice involves health, comfort or education compared to choices about coffee or games or like online services like YouTube, Spotify and things like that. So I'll talk about methodology for now. So for the sample, I decided to use 120 participants because in the previous study that I was talking about research, they used 60 participants and they had 2 conditions. And in my study, I have 4 conditions, so I thought it is a reasonable amount of participants. So I did a pilot study to just ask, because it is an online survey, I sent it out to people and asked if everything is clear and they understand what they have to do, so that to minimize any biases in the results due to not understanding the question. So then results will be analyzed by two-way ANOVA analysis, and this is basically the analysis of variance when there are 2 independent variables and the mix of them, how it impacts the dependent variables. So in this case, independent variables are whether it is free or paid, and then whether the good is high quality or low quality, and then dependent variables is whether consumers still want to purchase the free good. So the methodology involves consumers introducing to a question where they had 2 scenarios and they need to choose between them. So originally I had 8 products that I'm dealing with, but then since every product has 4 questions per them, it makes it 32 questions together. So when I did my pilot study, I had a feedback that it was too many questions, and actually they started to lose attention at the end. So I reduced this number to 5 products, so now it is 20 questions. And the design of the methodology is a repeated measure design. So we can see the example of the 4 questions for the first good. So I have 5 goods. It is coffee, bus, YouTube subscription, and then coding courses. So it is like education and then healthcare insurance. And with this one, we see the example for the coffee product. So it is either buying Starbucks for X pounds versus buying coffee from an unknown shop for the same amount of money. Then the second question is getting coffee from Starbucks for X pounds, but then free coffee from the unknown shop. Then the Starbucks coffee for free and versus unknown shop selling coffee for X pounds. And finally, both of them for free. And this will help to analyze whether, for the second conditions, people will choose the free goods rather than pay for the Starbucks just because it is free, but the quality is lower. So how these results will be analyzed? So first of all, we look at the effect of the price. So when the quality is constant, we see whether the reduction in price will have an effect. And then we do the same sort of thing for the second one. So when the price is constant, we see the effect of the change in quality. And then we compare it together. So for example, if I reduce the price of Starbucks, but when the quality was constant and the demand did not change significantly, but it did change for the unknown product, it shows exactly the zero price effect, as it was the only reason for getting the unknown product and the change in demand just because it was free. And then I repeat this for all of the goods and compare. So the results are analyzed in the RStudio. For those who don't know, it's like the coding website. And I expected to see something like this. So when it is high quality but not free, 70% of consumers will want to get it, as it is just fair quality to price ratio. And then when it is high quality and free, it is increased to 90%, as more people would want to get a good amount for free, and it is logical. And then sort of vice versa, low quality, not free, why would anyone want to buy a good like that? But then with the last point, when the quality is low and it is free, it will be sort of in the middle, because that's where the zero price effect comes into play, even though the quality is low, but it is free, so it is valued as beneficial, so participants will still want to get it. And so what I got for my results is for the first column, we see the free and good quality versus free bad quality. So we see that on the y-axis, we can see the proportion choosing free option. So we see that most of the, all of the participants want to choose free high quality because it's just rational decision. And then for the second one, we see free knowns like high quality versus paid low quality, and everyone was still wanting to get the free good quality. But then for the third column, we see the zero price effect when it is paid known, so we need to pay for the good quality versus free but bad quality. And we see that not all of the people want to pay, and they actually want to get the free one. But we also see sort of rationality in this decision, because since it reduced, it means that not all of the people wanted the free option, even though it had lower quality. And it shows that they actually were prepared to pay to get the higher quality. And if we compare for the products, we see the lowest one is health insurance. So it is sort of what I was hoping to find, that with the health insurance, people would not want to risk it and get a free good, but they would rather pay and get the actual high quality, because it is about their health and obviously the risks are higher. And then on the secondly, we see the coding example, so education, sort of the same logic. Then we see product bus, so the comfort and like during the traveling and things like that. Then we see coffee, and finally at the top we see the YouTube. So actually with the YouTube, we can conclude that participants were they were ready to get the free subscription. So the research with advertisements that I was talking about comes in here, as it shows that consumers are ready to see the advertisements, and it is still good for them. So here are just some things to consider, as obviously research cannot be ideal. So first of all, order of questions was not randomized, but I did it in order to keep constant between the participants. So all the participants had the same order of questions, and I thought it will be beneficial as it is the same, but then the order of the question itself could influence the results. Then also the sample size could have increased, but even though I had only 120 participants, the p-value, it was less than 0.01, which shows a very strong correlation, so maybe actually it was enough. Then also control for demand characteristics, as when all of the participants are introduced with 4 questions, they can perhaps understand what is the aim of the study, and then change their answers or change their behavior, and then it's not representable. And finally, this also could have been done in a lab, because it was an online survey, so that would increase ecological validity. And yeah, so to do the final conclusion, I think this, the study that I did sort of challenges the traditional and classical idea of zero price effect being this phenomenal special price, because we actually see that there is rationality in consumers' decision making, and it is logical. So yeah, we are sort of rational to an extent. Thank you for the attention. Any questions?
Again, thanks for another amazing presentation, as we almost closed with the last few. And just wanted to kick off with the questions once again. Yeah. How did you ensure that the sample size that you did choose was randomized in terms of distribution? How did you make sure not a certain age demographic, for example, was concentrated in your sample size?
Yeah, so actually I forgot to mention that, but in my survey I had the gender, age, and average grades and things like that, just to make sure we have the, as you mentioned, the relative representative of sample. But also my study is about teenagers, so it was from 14 to 18 years, and it was a relatively equal distribution. I would say it was more shifted to 16, 17, but yeah. And also, if you mentioned that, I wanted to add that I found that if the age was lower, then the participants were more likely to actually get the free option, and also if their grades were lower, they would also be sort of more biased by the zero price effect. So we can see that the older you get and the better you study, you understand the zero price effect.
With that, let's give another round of applause.
Thank you.